Oh, really?
The carnival. Anything can happen.
Are you serious? Ooh, it was working earlier. Yo, Wagwan. Bro Diallo Show, Q4 Radio, AM 1680. Today is Maurice Bishop Day. All praises due. Shout out to the grand revolutionary we lost too soon. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We have to fulfill the book. Today is May 29th in the year of your Lord 2019. I'm broadcast. Oh, Lord. I'm broadcasting straight out of the sanctuary hypocrisy that is. Wait, I said I was going to give Lori Lightfoot on our necks. I was going to give her a chance. That sanctuary hypocrisy, that was all Rahm Emanuel, who is no longer my mayor, my dishonorable Zionist, Zionist mayor, Rahm Emanuel. He's out. I think he's gone, but we'll not be forgotten for all the things that he did against the black community in his reign, and not just his reign over Chicago, but his time being Obama's henchman in the White House during his first administration. But anyway, I'm going to refrain from calling this the sanctuary hypocrisy, which is the city of Chirac, simply because that was Rahm's deal. We're going to see if Lori Lightfoot on our necks will continue the hypocrisy, but I haven't seen evidence that she's still going with that rhetoric. So now I'm reporting from the city of Chirac, but not the sanctuary hypocrisy. It's still the state of drill and noise. It's still the United States of America, and it still is the dying, over-ravaged planet Earth. This is Q4 Radio again, AM 1680 if you're in the city of Chirac. You can also find us on the TuneIn app, iTunes Radio, and as always, www.q4.org. And I was at what cause y'all late. Y'all got to get a late pass. The revolution been in effect. Get a late pass. Nubians for Literacy, which is a collective of people who accept the fact that revolution is a scholarly endeavor. And y'all love to see the gun smoke. Y'all love to wave the flags and engage in the marches. But if you're a true student of revolution, and I don't care if it's a regressive or progressive revolution, I don't care if it's the American revolutions where capitalists overthrow monarchs, or it's a Pan-African revolution where African people overthrow racist white oppressors. All revolutions are essentially intellectual endeavors. And if the intellectual work is not done properly on the front end, then the military effort will not be successful on the back end. Because, as Del Jones and Dr. Clark told us, if you don't have the proper mind state, the proper ideology, or what Dr. Bobby E. Wright called an African worldview based on African social theories, if you don't have that, you will end up, as Dr. Clark said, re-enslaving yourself. And we've seen that in the Congo. We've seen that in Ghana. We see that in Haiti. We see African people rise up, overthrow oppressors. We see that in Zimbabwe, formerly known as Rhodesia. We see that when people engage in revolutionary armed resistance, but they don't have the proper intellectual, scholarly grounding for those actions. We see that in the civil rights movement and the black liberation struggle here in the United States. You end up right back where you started. So anyway, Nubians for Literacy. As we branch out, as we create and reinvigorate the scholarly and intellectual foundations of the black liberation struggle, of Pan-African revolution, we have named our study group BRACE. BRACE stands for, what does it stand for? Oh, Black Research and Analysis Collective. Black Research and Analysis. And I know there has been ongoing degradation of the value of African philosophy and African intellectual work. There's been rhetoric for the last 30 years about, I ain't with all that talking. You in these books. There's been a rejection of theory. We think having enough passion and willing to shed our blood or spill other people's blood is enough. Even though it's been demonstrated and proven to not be enough, to be gravely inadequate. And black men in the streets with guns are defeated by white men in conference rooms with ink pens. Pen, sword. They've been saying the pen is mightier than the sword since the pen and swords were invented. But we think we can defy that history. We think we can defy that reality. And so many African people that I meet have no intellectual, no philosophical, no ideological basis. They just know they mad as hell and they not gonna take it anymore. We ain't our ancestors. You can get these hands when they haven't even studied their ancestors. So how the hell you know whether you're your ancestors or not? I respect the passion. And I acknowledge the fact that the passion is inadequate. Being mad about the po-po, being mad about the poverty, being mad about the daily propaganda, anti-African propaganda pumped into the heads of our children. Being pissed off is logical, it's justified. Black rage, I don't trust a black person that don't have the capacity for hate. And that is evidence that you are human. But that is not evidence that you are revolutionary. I think you are subhuman. You are anti-human. You are not fully developed as a human if you don't have the capacity for hate and you don't express hatred when African people are under siege across the globe. So I respect. Be mad as hell and don't take it no more. And being mad, if that provokes you to study and prepare yourself to engage in systemic, ongoing, multi-generational struggle, so be it. So if you start off mad and that provokes you to study, then you are a revolutionary. Or if you start off not mad, if you start off with rose-colored glasses, thinking the world is a beautiful place, God loves everybody, and humanity will one day lock arms, and little white boys and little black girls will walk hand in hand, and I have a dream today, if that's where you start. But if you begin to study entertainment, politics, intimate and sexual relations, history, war, economics, as you begin to study, and if you are truly being honest in your study, you will get pissed off. So you're pissed off, and which should provoke study, or study should piss you off. Either way, you should arrive at outrage and reason. You should be pissed off and you should be educated. That's what revolution is. Outrage based on comprehension of reality. Or comprehension of reality that leads to outrage. And when you put those two together, understanding the reality of the world and having the drive, having the passion to transform the reality of the world is what will make you a revolutionary. If you just got one or the other, you're of no use to anyone. Now or in the distant future. The true Haitian revolutionaries, Nat Turner, Kwame Nkrumah. And Nat Turner was illiterate, but he was scholarly. Go back and study the execution, how he engaged and drove his people, how he understood what needed to be done and how to go about doing it. And even when he faced his trial and execution, look at the brilliance and wisdom. And that's why I'm sitting here in 2019 still talking about Nat Turner. I'm not talking about the slave that had the highest cotton quota, that was best at picking cotton. I ain't talking about the slave that had the flyest slave shack and the dopest slave rags. I'm not talking about the slave that worked so hard he was able to emancipate himself and open his own plantation and begin to buy and purchase and trade his own slave. We're talking about Nat Turner. And we will be talking about Nat Turner in perpetuity. Not just because of his actions, but because of the brilliance of his actions. There were plenty of murderous and hostile and even rebellious slaves. But Nat Turner said, listen, we got to be systematic. We got to go from plantation house to plantation house. Nat Turner engaged in psychological warfare. Read the history. Nat Turner was so brilliant. White people all over the South, there were literally white people dropping dead of fear. They said Turner's on the outskirts of the town. Turner just crossed the county line, and white people would gather up their possessions and run. And there was this notion prior to Nat Turner that African men were docile, just like the beast of burden. If you ever been to a farm and you see a cow, and it'd be the day before the cow gets slaughtered, and he's just out there chewing cud. He doesn't think ahead. Like, look at this stupid cow. I feed him and he knows I'm going to cut his throat. I cut his mama's throat. I cut his daddy's throat. And I'm going to cut his throat. And the cow just sits out in the field and chews his cud and don't do nothing about it. They had that same attitude towards Africans. There were some in both the Haitian Revolution and the Nat Turner Rebellion, when they heard there's some angry slaves on the outskirts that are coming into the territory. They said, that's no bother. Just give me a musket, my sword. And when they see the primacy of a white man, when the white man went up to those angry brothers with machetes and said, halt! Don't you know when you hear the voice of a superior being, they thought they were gods above us. And when God spoke, men trembled. And they really thought, these white people really thought they could walk up to these slaves with fire in their eyes and say, halt! I command you to halt and cease and desist these hostile actions toward your master. And then 20 minutes later, your head is a soccer ball. So he shattered that myth. But it took some understanding, some comprehension, not just the machetes. When you take the machetes and you remove the analysis, he understood the mentality and the methodology of his oppressor. And that's why he is remembered. Same thing in the Haitian Revolution. Because they sat and watched. Them Africans, enslaved Africans. They couldn't read, but they could read the signs. They can watch the patrols. They can recognize patterns. They understood the psychology of this sick white oppressor. They understood their mentality. They understand how they viewed and placed themselves in the world, and they understood how they viewed us and placed us in the world. And they understood we have to disrupt the psychology, not just the physical apparatus of the slave system. Same thing in the Quilombo. In the Quilombos, Gangazumba, and the Brazilian slaves. Yeah, you talking about African descendants of slaves. Africans, colonization is a form of slavery, and slavery is a form of colonization. How dare you try to isolate victims and try to elevate one demographic of African enslaved Africans over and prioritize one over the other. That's what the white man wanted to do. Ooh, but I ain't going there. The Africans engaged in psychological warfare. They would desecrate the African, European religious symbols. The Portuguese and the Spanish were Catholics. And they had these Catholic icons and these Catholic saints. And the Africans would desecrate these saints, smear feces on them. You know, make them look, disfigure them, make them look demonic in the eyes of the white man. Psychological warfare, that's intellectual endeavor. Same thing, Sarah Unya, Nana Asantewa, Queen Nanny. Look at these women. You don't find revolutionaries that weren't scholarly. And I'm telling you, I ain't talking about going to Harvard. Y'all posting all these graduation pics. Y'all posting all these lists of all these black kids getting into all these Western institutions of learning. Again, just like that dude paying off Morehouse tuition. I'm indifferent. Some things outrage me. Some things bring me joy. Some things mean nothing to me. So I'm indifferent to that because it's too early to tell. Will this positively or negatively impact our struggle? So a black man walking into the street to debt-free tomorrow, it's not a bad thing. But it's not necessarily anything that's relevant to any other black person besides him. Time will tell. And when time tells, I will acknowledge it. It was a bad thing or it was a wonderful thing. All these debt-free African people, instead of having to go work for our oppressors, use their training, use their skills, use their education to come into the community and build on the grassroots level. So it was a good thing. Or no, the same black people that got my tuition paid, they go work for Experian. They go work for Equifax. They go work on Wall Street for these venture or vulture capitalist firms. And then the same people that got his debt paid will be calling and putting your name on the list so that you can get a home loan, so that you can actualize your ambitions because your debt's not paid. Calling, collections, and they go work for collections agencies. So I don't know if it's a good thing or not. So I am indifferent. But I know your pro-black folks, y'all having a good time. Enjoy that good time. I don't allow me to get in the way of y'all Holy Ghost party. Y'all go ahead, catch the spirit, flail, weep, wail, celebrate, do what y'all do. I'm not trying to get in the way of that party. I'm just sitting back, chewing tobacco and looking out the side of my eye. Call me a hater. I have embraced it. But I digress. Saying all that to say, the NFL is now overseeing brace. Black or black race. You can call it race. Black race, brace, however it suits you. You want to scare white folks. Where are you going? I'm going to black race tonight. Oh, what? Where? I thought you were black race. How do you go? But anyway, Black Research and Analysis Collective. But moving on. Maurice Bishop. That's who I was playing. Today is his date of birth. The revolutionary murdered, assassinated by Ronnie Reagan. He was born in 1944 on this day, and he was assassinated in 1983 because the United States did not want an example of socialist revolution. They did not want to see African people demonstrate to the world that we could thrive without exploitation, that we could use the resources of the lands we occupy for the benefit of the people instead of profit of corporations. So they invaded Grenada. They destroyed the revolution. Many of the white and affluent Grenadans, black Grenadans, cooperated with the United States. Many of the Grenadian criminals cooperated with the United States with the overthrow of the socialist regimes because they, just like the Europeans, wanted to be parasites and exploit the people for personal profit as opposed to be of the people and empower the people. So I didn't want to stop playing that. And hopefully when I'm going to try to get through today's discussion, today's broadcast, and maybe I can get back to the really most honorable. We keep calling anybody, just anybody with a name we call most honorable, but the absolutely most honorable, most revolutionary, or should I say most logical, Maurice Bishop. So anyway, more coming on brace. And did y'all know they had stop and frisk way back in 1964? Even I thought, well, I knew, but let's just say, I know stop and frisk. Everybody associate that with Adolf Giuliani, Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, before he became a henchman for the Trump administration. He was mayor of New York City. He replaced David Shoeshine Boy Jenkins. And anyway, it's really amazing that Malcolm X was denouncing and fighting against stop and frisk policies in 1964 and all the way up into, I guess, 2018, 2017. Y'all supposedly solved it. At least you got it off the book. But President Trump was advocating in the 2016 race to bring back nationwide stop and frisk. Yeah, we really solving problems just to return to them. Anyway, today's show is entitled The Tyranny of Tradition. And I've been bumping heads with random black people, face to face and across the worldwide internets. And I notice when I get into any type of let me explain. I got some explaining to do. I have some questions before I talk about it. One more thing I want to say. I played. I started off the show. I'm just totally off protocol, and I apologize. I started off the show. I played some EPMD. Why? Because there's no excuse not to play EPMD. Tabernacle and microphone, doctor. You got to chill. Anyway, I played EPMD. Two of my favorite tracks. So what you saying? Two party club bangers back in the day when I was in the musty little house parties. Doing the butt. Trying to grind up on some little girls. Way back in the day. Those are two bangers. You got to chill and So What You Saying. And then following an excerpt from a speech by Maurice Bishop, I played Wyclef Jean, one my favorite song from Wyclef and the Refugee All-Stars, Gunpowder. And I played that as an act of defiance because I could, if I saw Wyclef today, I'd spit in his damn face. I'd take the charge. I'd spit in his face. Because it was revealed that he stole more than $16 million from the Haitian people. He stole $16 million from the Haitian people. And I could even see if he stole that money, not that any way would ever, nothing would ever justify that. But he stole that money to pass it around to rich white folks. He's out there jet setting on the people's money. Now, I don't understand why I should be so outraged because black elites, that's all they ever do. That's all they've ever done. But then another thing, you had some black people because what Wyclef did, misappropriate funds, is what Trump has been doing. He been doing this longer. Before Wyclef was born, the Trump Foundation was out there doing this. So, some black people, the What About Gang. Y'all remember the What About Gang? The What About Gang? I didn't know. They've been around forever. But I came into realization of the What About Gang. And you got to say, what about? Under the Cosby, when Cosby was exposed to be a serial rapist. Cosby was exposed to be a serial rapist. And so when his crimes against women were exposed. Now, again, ask anybody that know me from back in the day and from around the way. They know I was hating on Cosby back long before when he was still getting honorary degrees all over the place, when Cosby was still, America's dad. I hated Cosby's politics. Still do. I was unaware of Cosby's sexual predations. But I was essentially alone. I even had people I honored and respected that I admired. I had people I looked up to, some of my educators and mentors. Like, you can't come down on Cosby now. Come on. He's always represented our people well. I'm like, how, where, why, sway? But anyway, when Cosby was demonstrated to be a sexual predator, many black men took the position that, what about Woody Allen? What about Harvey Weinstein? What about, who's that guy, the corpse, that dead man who died 20 years before he was dead, looked like a walking corpse? Hugh Hefner, Playboy Mansion. What about Hugh Hefner? And so when a black man does something to harm or in violation of the community, or in harm or violation of the black community standards, they say, well, what about the white man? Which essentially saying, if a white man can do it, I should be able to do it. As if they are the standard, if they are the mold. Or if they are the embodiment of justice. If the white man is able to do it and get punishment, then we're willing to accept punishment for doing it. If the white man does it and escapes punishments, then we feel that black men should be able to do it. They are the bar. And we don't want to go, as Adam Clayton Powell regrettably said, I don't agree with this, but he said it, and I do greatly respect Adam Clayton Powell. I respect him as much as Malcolm did. I say, we want no more than you have, but we will accept no less than you have, which was a horrible standard for African people to strive for. But that's been the integrationist mantra. Even though they don't say it, they live it. They ain't got to talk it because they live it, as Puff Daddy likes to say. I ain't got to talk it because I live it. So the what about gang just fell all over themselves. White men been raping. White men been molesting. White man's been predatory and don't go to jail. What about Donald Trump? He's on tape talking about sexual assault. Are y'all going to lock up Cosby? Now, these are not black men who have, that I've accounted as the what about gang. These are not black men who are about justice. You'll notice if you go and you see these men making these type of posts on social media, if you see these type of men in your community, at the basketball court, up in the club, the what about gang, they're not about social justice. They're not even about racial equality. Because the only people they go about the what about, they throw the what about sign up for, are wealthy, established black men, upper class, elite black men. Now, if a black woman is a professor and she's trying to exercise her intellectual freedom, and then the university she works for attempts to fire her or suppress her voice, they don't come out and list all the white radical scholars, all the white women who are able to express their academic freedom. No, they don't care. They be like, that hoe had a good job. Why she talking all that mess? She messing up her job. She ignorant. She a feminist. Tariq Nasheed just attacked Caribbean and African women for being feminists. Now, he didn't say, now this same dude that was like, Tariq Nasheed is a part of the what about gang. So he was out there, oh yeah, y'all coming down on Cosby. Y'all want Cosby to lock up Cosby. Why don't you lock up what about all these other white men? Essentially saying either lock up these white men or let Cosby go. But if the white man's getting locked up for it, then I'm okay with being like me. The white man is my standard. There are many things black men should not go to jail for that you should lock up white men for. If a black man takes up arms to defend himself, free him. If a white man takes up an arm, lock him up. Yeah, that's right. Lock him up. So there are certain things I think black people should be able to do that white men should not be able to do. And there are certain things that white men do that I think black men should take no part of. I don't ever say what about. If I see a black man does something, I look at that within the black cultural, black historical, black context. I don't give a damn what's happening or not happening with white men. They are not my teacher. They are not my example. They are not my standard. They are nothing that I strive for. They are what I struggle against. But anyway, Tariq Nasheed was what about gang. But then when he talked about black feminists, and black feminists were coming under fire for certain contradictions, inconsistencies, he didn't say, well, white women white women get to do. No, what about gang? So what about gang members? One thing, if you will, what about? When R. Kelly, a man who apparently is broke, but he lived a lavish lifestyle. If you look at R. Kelly on the internet, if you Google if you Google image R. Kelly, he's always got on gold chains and Cuban cigars and in hot cars with fly ladies. So he portrays the image, even though he apparently, according to him, he ain't got no money. He lives the image of money, power, fame, respect. And so when R. Kelly touching little girls, same thing. What about gang came out in full force. They locked arms around R. Kelly's studio singing We Shall Overcome. Or they want to lock up R. Kelly. What about Woody Allen? What about Elvis? Y'all want to stop playing R. Kelly's music? What about Elvis? Elvis had a 14-year-old girlfriend. What about? That's what about gang. Now, if a young black man is murdered by the police, and let's say he actually was engaged in criminal activity. No criminal activity that would warrant the death penalty. And even if a young black man was engaged in activity that would warrant the death penalty, the police do not have the authority to deem someone worthy of death and execute them. Innocent until proven guilty. So everybody, when they initially engage with the police, most everybody are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So far as the police know, everybody they shoot is innocent, because they don't have any evidence on the scene in the people's face. So anyway, young black man gets shot. He's trying to do a hustle, trying to sell drugs and gets shot. The What About gang does not come out about all the majority of the drug dealers in the United States are white men. What about? Only wealthy. So anyway, What About gang has come out in favor of Wyclef Jean. His Yele Haiti, Yele, one of my Haitian brethren and sistren, y'all can tell me the proper pronunciation. I'm still going to mispronounce it on purpose to try to disrespect Wyclef, but I want to make sure I don't accidentally pronounce it right. But anyway, Yale, Haiti, and has embezzled from the charity, collected funds for relief efforts in Haiti, dating back to the Haitian earthquake, ongoing disruption, poverty, ecocide of Haiti. He collected over $16 million, and it stated that he was flying celebrities like Lindsay Lohan to do fundraisers. He was paying for private charter jets for people like Matt Damon. So he was using this charity to jet set with white celebrities. Some of the ways the charity squandered donations were to spend $30,763 to fly Lindsay Lohan from New Jersey to a charity event in Chicago. Now, I've flown from Newark Airport to Chicago O'Hare, and it did not cost me $30,760. It didn't even cost me $763. And it says, and then another $58,000 was spent on private jets to fly Matt Damon and other celebrity friends of Wyclef to Haiti. Now 58, I don't know. They say Matt Damon was on the plane, but I don't know how many other people were there. But anyway, I don't know why he got these damn crackers flying around in the name of Haiti. Charter jets, first class. So, I still love that song. But anyway, the What About gang came out. And I started seeing the What About gang now that Wyclef is under investigation, and I hope they slam dunk his big foreheaded dumbass under the jail. In fact, put him in a Haitian prison. In fact, don't even put him in a Haitian prison. Take his ass to the city of Port-au-Prince and release and drop him right there in the city center and let the Haitians deal with him. And the song, I ain't seen nothing. I haven't listened to Wyclef since the 80s. Hell, since the 90s. Like, that song I played came out in 1997. That's about the time when the Carnival. Because I remember before they were remember the Fugees translator crew? Anyway, I like some of the Fugees music. I played my favorite song by Wyclef Jean because I'm still conflicted. I don't know if I'll ever be able to play Wyclef again on the air. So I know I had to squeeze in at least one more before my utter disgust, because I'm following this. It's an investigation right now. It's an investigation right now. And remember, he ran for president in Haiti and somebody tried to blow his brains out. Haitians ain't stupid. They're oppressed. They're exploited. They're impoverished. They're underdeveloped. But they're not stupid. And remember, go look up the story. When he was down there campaigning for president, he got out of the campaign because somebody tried to blow his damn brains out. And one of his campaigners got shot instead. They don't play down there. That's why I'm saying forget the U.S. Justice System. Send his ass home. And let the people deal with his punk ass. But anyway, the What About gang is rightly identifying that Trump literally had his charity shut down about 4 months ago, where he could no longer conduct any type of affairs of the Trump Foundation. Initially, they wanted him and his family to let go and step away from the Trump Foundation, but they said that's not enough, and they removed the not-for-profit status. It no longer exists because of this same type of behavior. Trump raised money to help the poor, to help the underprivileged, and spent that money on things like a giant 8-foot portrait of himself, commissioned art, to hang up in his mansion. Doing the same dirty, sickening things. Exact same thing. But can I tell you something? Trump was raising money amongst white folks. Wyclef was robbing us. And because I'm not for equality, you never go back and listen. I got over 200 shows in the archives. Find one place where I said I want equality with my oppressor, where I want equal treatment, equal resources, equal opportunity. Equality is death. Never seek equality with your lesser. Wilma Rudolph said she was one of the most prominent. She was the most prominent female athlete of her generation during the civil rights era. And she was in the airport minding her business, trying to conduct her affairs, and some white journalist ran up to her and said, "Can I get a word? Can I get a word?" And she stopped and said, "What you want, white boy?" She said because she was participating and throwing her support to great risk of herself, unlike Bill Cosby, who kept his head down and played it safe during the civil rights era. He wouldn't even march with King, let alone converse with Malcolm X. He kept his head down. Where many other people, not saying they revolutionary, but I do respect what's respectable about what they did. Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte, Red Fox, Nina Simone. There are so many celebrities that were like, yeah, you know, I'm going to miss out on a little bit of money. But certain artists like Sammy Davis Jr. and Bill Cosby kept their head down. They ducked, dived, hooted, and scooted, ran and scanned. Because they didn't want no, I don't want no, don't bring no trouble around here. Them are the kind of Negroes that not only wasn't really to run off with Harriet, they rang the alarm bell when they heard she was on the ground. But anyway, I'm going in too many directions with this, and I'm getting off subject. Let me just say, Wyclef. I don't know if I'm gonna play his music. That's my favorite song by Wyclef and the Refugee All Stars. I might continue to play some of his music or not. I'm watching this thing. I don't know how it's gonna fully play out, but I could tell you right now, based on what has been uncovered, I could spit in his face for robbing the Haitians. $16 million, dude, when you paid already. King's son said, Judge, you paid already. Why you acting crazy like Eddie? You already paid. What you didn't have to steal. I mean, but that's the mentality. It's very hard to get rich in this society unless you're a psychopath or a sociopath. But anyway, let's talk about the tyranny of tradition while we got enough time, because there's so much I gotta cover. This Friday, I want to talk about who's black. Freddie Fox, who's nice, who's whack, mother that. Anyway, we're going to talk about who is black. Because now, y'all so slick. I mean, we got black folks engaged in full-scale eugenics and racial purity politics. And let me tell you, just look at all the other races and cultures and nations that got involved in this racial purity, this biological genetic purity. Look at what happened to them. And now we got black people that want to follow these crackers down that road of racial purity. You're not black, you're black. Here's a hierarchy of blackness. Some people blacker than other people. Whoa. Really? We really going to have to do this? So I'm going to come and tell y'all who is black, who qualifies to be black, and who has the authority to define who's black and who's not black. And does it matter? Anyway, but that's Friday. Today is Wednesday, so let's talk about what we're going to talk about on Wednesday. And I guess I'll try to get through this fast. I want to talk about the tyranny of tradition. Black people are being reactionary AF. I've had so many discussions with black folks, and what I find is when black people can no longer logically defend their position, when they no longer have any evidence or rational arguments or any type of valid supports for the positions they hold or the things they advocate for, they fall back on one or two things, or three things, but really it's two things, and one of those two things is split in two. Number one, they'll fall back on faith. And fortunately, because of the way there's more information about religion than ever before, when there's a religious atrocity or religious hypocrisy, when some religious figure is engaged in everything from pedophilia to embezzlement, studies are finding everyone who engages, whether it's a mainstream publication or just a cursory survey of communities, we're finding that people are giving less validation to religion. So when someone says, the spirit has moved me, more and more people, not enough, by no means enough. There are a lot of people that say, oh, I believe in God, but they're not religious. and one of the fastest growing sectors. But that is one area where people say, well, my faith tells me. The Lord compels me. And it used to be when somebody says faith or the Lord compels them, that had much more weight than it used to have. But another thing people fall back on when they don't have any real stability, stable or consistent defense is tradition. When I come up to somebody like Lord Jamar, say, get off the swine and get refined. You act like you're blind and you lost your damn mind. Get off that swine. Stop eating them dead chicken carcasses. Them pig guts. Stop gnawing down on them shrimp sea roaches. People are like, my family, what do you say? We've been eating this for generations. I'm from Louisiana. And I'm like, yeah, you're from Louisiana. Your foot is still in Louisiana, sitting here in a motor scooter. I know you're from Louisiana. You done left your foot in Louisiana because you got the sugar and the gangrene. This is how we always ate. And my daddy lived to be 175 years old, and he drank every day, smoked every day, and ate nothing but fried chitlins. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and desserts. Fried chitlins with sugar and syrup. Now, I've never met this individual. I've only heard about this individual. Can the magical Negro who smoke, drink, and eat pig guts and eat an unhealthy diet, eat a meat-based fried, died and laid to the side, can you please call me? I will give you a whole week of shows. Come on the air and sit right next to me. We don't even have to talk. I will buy you the chitlins myself. The 95-year-old. And I know John will knock me, will shut down, will cancel my show. Because you can't smoke in here. You're not supposed to eat in here. But I'm willing to do it. Bring me the 100-year-old man that smokes every day, eats nothing but unhealthy food, and drinks every other day. Bring that uncle, that cousin that you always tell me about when I say eat a vegan diet, holistic health, drink some water. When I try to tell y'all a holistic way of being and y'all fall back on tradition and then tell me stories about how tradition has served you, bring that man here. I will put him live on the air and he can smoke, and I'll barricade the door so that the Q4 staff won't bust in here and stop us from smoking in hell. I'll smoke some and drink some, and I'll even eat a little tiny sliver of the chitlins. But I don't believe you, so I'm going to put that out there right now. So, but they swear up and down. It's the tradition. And it's not just that. It's not just that. Whenever you try to introduce any concepts or ideas, and people want to tell you, that's not African. That's not African tradition. Maybe I have to get some brothers on, because it's a lot of people I work with, I still intend to work with if they're willing to work with me, that I have to debate with. And they want to tell me, this is African, that's not African, that's African, that's African. And I'm like, wait a minute. Who gives a damn whether it's African or not? Oh my God, because whether or not something is African is a different discussion over whether or not something serves the interest or advance the interest of African people. Everything African doesn't advance African interest. The very first thing you can look at is African people. African people on the continent or African people in the diaspora. Does every African serve the interest of African people? No. Are they African? Yes. Do they represent or serve the interest of African people? No. So just because something is African does not mean it speaks to the needs or interest or advances African people. So just we know the flesh and bone, the very people who made Africa, because guess what? The continent of Africa is just a landmass. What made Africa Africa is not the land, but the people, and how the culture that we developed, the history that we have created and we've lived through and that we're still constructing. Without African people, it's just a landmass. With African people there, that makes it an African continent. And the lions, the giraffes, the hippos, they don't give a damn. The Nile crocodile, they don't give a damn about either way. To them, it's the ecosystem. It's the biosphere. Humans are the ones that got to come with culture, tradition, ideas, artificial constructs, agendas, nation states, borders. That's all us. Animals are not that stupid, but that's what we do. That's how we get down. I'm not knocking it. I'm all up in it too. I was born into this set, and I'm gonna claim it. I'm a human being. I'm a primate nonetheless. Yes, you are an ape. You are a primate. You are a mammal. Y'all reject being mammal so much, and mammary glands. Y'all won't even let your woman breastfeed because you think you're a higher specimen, even though you got to eat, breathe, poop. And I'm pretty sure science is aggressively working on trying to alleviate the burden of eating, breathing, and pooping. And then we'll become something other than animals. But right now, you want to be an algorithm. You want your consciousness downloaded into the computer. Then I say, oh, you're transhuman. You're no longer a primate. You're an algorithm. But right now, you're still a primate. You got little hairs on your arm. You got little nipples on your chest. You got what this thing called a coxil, the coxal bone, which is remnants of it. You are a primate. I'm sorry. Evolution is a real thing. It's not just a theory. It is a proven theory. It is a validated theory. It is a theory that has stood up to every challenge and test. Evolution, we evolved, humans evolved, life evolves. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the tyranny of tradition. How we get so caught up in tradition when the very purpose of tradition is to serve people, not for people to serve the tradition. So if you're feeding into your tradition, but you can't identify very specific and direct ways where your traditions that you adhere to are serving you, you have every right to challenge, change, abandon those traditions. But if we're going to tear down tradition, let's just talk about some functional definitions of tradition. Tradition is nothing but the techniques you use to translate and pass culture down through the generations. That's all it is. It's not this, oh wow, it's here comes tradition, bow down to tradition. No. Tradition are the means, are the behaviors, are the customs, are the ideas that and methods that you use to make sure your kids repeat what you did. I'm vegan. I want my children to be vegan. I want them to eat a vegan diet. So our family has a lot of vegan rituals and vegan traditions. One strict tradition in my family is we're constantly reading labels. If you've been a vegan for more than a year or two, you'll find wonderful vegan products. They do this all the time. You find a product and you read the ingredients and you'll be like, wow, this is really good. Ain't got no meat, ain't got no dairy, it ain't got no, unpronounceable chemical compounds. And you buy the thing. But one thing, and then you new vegans have to figure this out. And y'all always see us. Vegans do more reading in the grocery store than we do in the library. Real talk. 9 times out of 10, if you're walking through the grocery store and you see an individual reading a label like 2 or 3 different times, they in the frozen fruit section reading, they in the baked goods section reading. Hell, they even in the body and care products where the deodorant and toothpaste is reading. If you see somebody reading inside of a grocery store more than 2 or 3 different times, they're a vegan, I guarantee you. But anyway, one of the traditions is we read ingredients. And even if if you've been buying something for the last 10 years, this has happened to me and my wife. If you've been buying something for the last 10 years, you're like, yeah, I love this product, it's vegan. And for some reason, these food processors, these food manufacturers, they like to just slip in something. They like to tweak the ingredients. So one day you've been buying this product, it is completely vegan. And then one day you read the label, and it's got casein in it. They didn't put some little dairy in there, or they didn't put egg whites in there, or some other animal product or animal byproduct in it. And like, for what? Why do they do that? So it's tradition in our family. Even if it's a product, even if we buy a package of tofu, we make it a regular habit or tradition to read the label. Read the label, read the label. Always read the labels on the food you buy. Even if it's a food you bought, you don't have to read it every time, but especially if they change the color or change the logo on the packaging, reading labels is a tradition. When I was growing up with my grandmother, we never read labels. She looked at the logos on the front. She loved her Tide soap, laundry soap. She had Ivory. She bought Wonder Bread. She had products that were tried and true. She knew the logo. She knew the colors, and I never even knew there was labels on there. When I'm looking at the back of a cereal box, I'm looking for the cartoons and the puzzles. So I went from a household that had a tradition of not caring about what the labels were. Do it taste good? Then shut up and eat it. To a household that said, does it taste good? No. Then shut up and eat it. Now, it's kind of the same thing. We just, the motivation. Now we eat it because it's horrible and dry and lifeless. We used to eat it because it was good. But anyway, so that tradition has changed. And I started trying to talk to my siblings and talk to my uncles and cousins and them. And I said, you know, you should read the label. What's in that food? It's bread. Bread's in it. Are you sure? What else? What did they use? They use flour, man. No, hey, leave me alone. Like, if I try to go talk, like, this is a family tradition. And I'm trying to use these simplified examples. But the concept goes all the way up to rituals. Cutting off foreskins. Or shunning homosexuals. Or man is the head of the household. Or beat children and spank children. So, but these smaller traditions, I mean, it applies all the way up the scale of whatever you think is an ongoing practice that you don't generally question because it was how you was raised and it's, you want your children to carry on traditions. So, I try to go to I didn't think it was a big deal. It was kind of a natural transition. And I'm like, wow, you know, I read these labels. You know, and then I started joining food cooperatives and started growing my own food and really getting more enlightened about how I feed myself, the sources of my food, how my food is harvested, how the people who harvest my food are compensated or not compensated, and started getting into all this stuff. And I had a whole new relationship with food. And it got to the point where 99.9% of all the foods that I was raised on through holidays, my great grandma's peach cobbler. Oh, I remember Grandma Bowie's peach cobblers. Oh, man, you let me tell you. Uncle Chris's barbecue, his briskets, his burn-ins. Uncle Chris's barbecue. Uncle Carl's big bowls. My Uncle Carl was the first one that taught me how to not use a cereal. You use a salad bowl and a salad spoon to eat cereal. You put half a box of cereal and 2 bags of sugar in there, and he taught me how to make cereal the damn right way. You know, and my sister Tanisha used to have the can. My tradition, these are foods, and when I think about these foods, it's not even the foods, it's the relationships that I had growing up. Grandma Sonetta's neck bones. How you take a neck bone? Like, you know, a vertebrae, a spine, ain't no meat. She would cook up neck bones and you swear you had a full course meal. Pork chop. I remember my mama and her head cheese and saltine crackers. So that was tradition. Food is a very serious cultural thing. People will mess you up. You more likely to get your ass kicked talking down on people's food than talking down on people's religion. You know, you go up to a Muslim and you say, Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad messed with little girls. And Farad Muhammad wasn't nothing but a white man, a common street hustler. And he'd be like, well, brother, I hope that you will get further enlightenment and further. But you smack that bean pie out of his hand, he gonna beat your ass. People more serious about their food than they got. That is one of the core religions. But when I went off and graduated high school and ran off to college, and I got off the pork, then I got off the beet and red meat, and I left the dairy alone. I became a vegan. Became more conscious about food, and I learned about the slow food movement, and I just learned the basic tradition of reading ingredients. I tried to bring that home to my family, and they was like, you crazy. And I am not kidding. I got more flack from my family than from becoming a vegan than I did from becoming an atheist. And my family is highly religious. That's another tradition. But food runs deep. That runs, literally, it runs through your veins. Sometimes it doesn't run through your veins. It clogs your veins up. But you get my point. And when I would go argue and discuss this and try to bring the good news and try to enlighten my relatives, the first thing they would tell me is Grandpa Bowie, who went from smoking cigarettes to smoking cigars to smoking pipe. And again, when I mention Grandpa's Bowie's pipe, I smell his wide array of tobaccos. It was a wonderful smell. Even to this day, I imagine when I get old enough to start smoking therapeutic cannabis, I'm going to get me a pipe like my Grandpa Bowie. I wish I had access to his old pipe collection. And they would say, Grandpa Bowie, he died of emphysema, but he lived into his 80s. He lived to a ripe old age. And so my uncles tell me, look at Grandpa Bowie, and they literally, this is the conversations I've had. We long-lived people. My family name is Bowie, the Bowie line, and the Jefferson and the Bradleys. Those are my family lines. Jefferson, Bowie, Bradley. That's all. You go to Kansas City, you throw a rock, you're going to hit a Jefferson, a Bowie, or a Bradley. We run deep. And I tell them, you can't eat like this. I don't want to see y'all go out sooner. And even if you die tomorrow, I'd like for the life that you live to be vibrant, where you to be fully functional. I don't want to see y'all crippled. I don't want to see y'all go blind. I don't want to see you lose a foot to sugar. And they look at me and say, we long-lived people. Look at Grandma and Grandpa Bowie, my great-grandparents. Yes, I knew and I grew up with my great-grandparents. And I know some people didn't even get an opportunity to really meet or develop relationships with their grandparents. I know it. You know, my son had an opportunity to meet his great-great-grandma. But anyway, they say we long-lived people. And we ate this way and we lived this long. And so they're locked into that tradition. And I say, but Grandpa Bowie came up in a time where there was no R waves emitting. He came up he didn't grow up in a world with wireless internet radiation all over him. And there are literally tens of thousands of chemical compounds and substances that are in our food and in our environment that we inhale in our lungs, that we drink in our water, that are not in the water today, that weren't in the water when Grandpa Bowie was living in segregated Oklahoma on a Indian reservation, being treated poorly by the Native Americans. While the Native Americans were under European genocide, they were imposing Native American racism against blacks. Black when Grandma Bowie was down in Louisiana before she did her mass migration out of the Deep South. It was a different atmosphere. Literally, the atmosphere was different. The air, the biochemical makeup of the air, of the water, of the beef. It used to be if my grandmother ate some beef back in the 1920s, the 1930s, it's more likely that that beef that she eaten didn't come no more than 15 miles away, 25 miles away. That cow was slaughtered. And ground up. And maybe in some ground chuck, there might be 1 or 2, maybe 3 cows in there. Today, you eat some ground chuck, there could be more than 1,600 cows. That meat could have came as far away from Brazil, and that meat could be 5 to 6 years old. This is industrialized, globalized food system. So the beef that sustained Grandpa Bowie into his 80s is not the beef, it's beef that's going to kill you in your 40s. And if it don't kill you, you're going to have a stroke. And we're looking at all these rappers, all these famous people, young age, having strokes and stuff. So you can't do what Grandpa did. When Grandpa smoked tobacco, you look at the ingredients. What was on there? Tobacco. Now you buy a pack of cigarettes and read it. Because, yeah, I even pick up items I would never consume, dairy and meat products, and when I'm out in the store, I read the ingredients of things I would never intend to eat, just trying to see what's out here. So you can't do what our ancestors did and expect the same outcome, because the conditions under which you're doing it and the substance that you're using to do it are not the same. So you're doing what somebody did 150 years ago, right now, today. That's when tradition becomes tyranny. But tradition is nothing but the methods we use to pass on culture. So what is culture? If you've listened to the Bro Diallo show, I don't like all these fanciful definitions of culture. The music, the art, the culmination of human philosophy and development. No, let me tell you, look up the biological definition of culture. The biological definition of culture is basically that which maintains conditions for sustainable growth. I put in the word sustainable, but culture is actually means to maintain conditions for growth. When they swab your cheek, they put it in a culture. In that culture, they said, we're going to culture a bacteria, we're going to culture a virus. That means you create encapsulate, you take a structure, and within that structure, you put all the conditions necessary for growth. So you have the nutrients, you have the protection necessary. Whether it's some cultures, sometimes if you want to culture something, you have to keep it in the dark. Sometimes if you want to culture, you have to expose it to light. Sometimes to culture some substances, you have to keep them in an anaerobic environment, meaning no oxygen. Other things, if you want to culture them, you have to saturate them with. So depending on what you're trying to cultivate, you have to create different conditions within the culture in order to grow. And also you have to regulate the growth, because growth meaning that if something overreaches its resources, or the culture, if it overreaches the culture, it'll die, it'll kill everything. So if you're too quote unquote successful in culturing something, it over reproduces, it outstretches its limitations of its environment, and thus it kills it. So that's not truly culture. But if you give it inadequate resources to reproduce itself and sustain viable numbers, that's another way to kill. So culture is about balancing yourself with the environment and amongst in relationship to each other. And that's why I say it's not maintaining conditions for growth, but maintaining conditions for sustainable growth, sustainable use of your resources, and sustainable reproduction and growth of population and expansion of population. That's all culture is. And all the music and all the wonderful things and how we dress and how we dance and the things that we paint and the language that we use, it all goes to feed this purpose. So in human culture, and let me say this because I understand, and I understand when it's very hard to critique black culture, black traditions, because black people are under and have been under perpetual genocidal warfare and attack since we came into contact with our oppressors and our enemies. Before they were our oppressors, they were our eternal foe, our implacable foe, our eternal bitter enemy. They have relentlessly attacked us since they've encountered us. Read Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of Black Civilization. Or just listen to Dr. Clark. He said, we have no friends. So when someone is under attack, it's very hard to criticize them. And you find all the time, a woman is attacked or raped, and they say, what was she wearing? What was she doing? She had no business being there. That's not appropriate. A young man is shot by the police. Was he wearing a hoodie? Was he a thug? Did he have a criminal record? Did he, let's check his blood. Was he smoking weed? And that is not what I want to do on a racial or cultural or scale. Our people are under attack. And so it becomes very hard to critique something that is under attack, because then it might give you the impression that I'm joining with our attackers. So the Europeans come and say African culture is subhuman. African culture is primitive. African culture is backwards. And the best thing Europeans ever did for the black man was to bring him out of Africa and into the light of the Western world. That is not my argument. And I acknowledge that argument. I condemn that argument. I attack that argument. I challenge that argument. But one thing that has done is that we become hypersensitive and we become hostile to internal critique. We become hostile to internal, and that's what is the what about gang is. We get to the point where black is under attack. So we deem any black under attack as an attack on us all, an attack on our integrity, an attack on our humanity. So when black rapists like Bill Cosby, when black thieves like Wyclef Jean, when black pedophiles alleged like Michael Jackson, when a black person who is not, when Obama, when black politicians, black imperialists, black capitalists come under attack, we feel compelled to defend them, even though they're enemies of our people. Because it's very hard to critique that which is under attack. It's very hard, and it's a very sensitive thing to do, but also, no matter how hard it is, it's something we absolutely must do. All black cultures and all black traditions must come under strict, aggressive basic scrutiny. That is what is called a cultural revolution. When a people come under oppression, they have to engage in revolution. And nothing can be spared under a revolution. You can't have a political revolution with cultural stagnation. You can't transform economic or social relations without transforming your traditions. We want to be able to maintain untouched Africa. We want to transform the world without transforming ourselves. We want to totally rearrange how we relate to other races without rearranging how we relate to ourselves. It is not possible, because if you do that, you do, as our ancestors and our scholars said, you end up re-enslaving yourself. So everything you do that seems just so normal, that makes you feel so validated, so comfortable, secure, you should evaluate it strictly, critically, unflinchingly. Why am I doing this? How does this serve me? And how does it serve others? How does it challenge or subvert or undermine oppression? How does it advance my people's liberation? Everything you do, even if it comes to how you entertain yourself, even if it comes to your intimate, loving, personal relationships. I don't want to offend my mama. I don't want to lose my husband. I don't want to alienate my friends. Revolution might cause us to do that. Dr. Clark also said it's better to march into hell with dignity and intelligence than march into heaven with a bunch of fools. That's what revolution calls. And I see too many times we call for external revolution while we call for internal regression, out of respect for black traditions. Jumping the broom. Eating soul food. Rallying around pro-blackness, rallying around any black person that comes under attack, whether the attack is justified or not, or whether they rallied with us when we were attacked collectively or not. Whether they are parasites living off the economic exploitation of other people, or whether they are social, it doesn't matter. We marched for Meek Mill when he got locked up unjustly, and we marched for the same way we marched for Mumia. I'm sorry, we don't really march for Mumia, but you get my point. We have to understand that tradition, as it can advance or sustain you, it can also pull you backwards. So what traditions do we engage? I have a whole list here, but I'm gonna allow you to expand and continue this discussion. What traditions do you personally, or do we collectively adhere to, value, embrace, that are counter-revolutionary, that are reactionary, that are subversive, that are divisive, that are unjustifiable? Y'all tell me. What ideas, what ideologies, what black organizations that have been around for decades, for a century or more, that have not improved, but we keep going? What ways of worship? What ways of interacting with the divine and all? What concepts, what myths and folklores and fairy tales and holy books do we all have in our homes? What pictures, what imagery? What standards and protocols, or lack thereof? There's a bumper sticker, and sometimes bumper stickers say, question everything. Any tradition that is above critique is below our consideration. And I know that is hella uncomfortable. And I meet a lot of black people who claim they're revolutionary, claim they're enlightened, claim they are woke AF. But when you start to converse with them, you find they haven't questioned anything. Everything they were indoctrinated to in their childhood, they still adhere to today. They've just draped a kente cloth over it. You look at these Tariq Nashis, these even Farrakhan. If you veil back all the Muslim and white devil gutter religion rhetoric, he ain't nothing but an old Baptist Christian preacher. He's got Christian values. He hasn't even developed full on. He got Christian values, Christian dispositions, even a Christian rhythm to how he preaches. And when you become revolutionary, you don't just start piling on Afrocentric rhetoric. And you don't just start wearing Afrocentric garb, and you don't just simply start wearing dreadlocks or natural African hairstyles, and you don't just simply fly to Ghana and fly back and say, oh, I'm African now, and you all the stuff that you piled on top, all of the Western indoctrination, all of the reactionary, regressive, anti-intellectualisms that were the core of you before you were awakened, that are a byproduct of our enslavement and the Western propaganda. You don't just pile on top of that. You have to purge that. Purge it. How many revolutionaries, Kwame Nkrumah, Ho Chi Minh, Che Guevara, pick, they all say revolution creates a new man. Before you can transform a society, you have to transform the people. Fred Hampton. Everybody says it. But we think we can be the same people we always was and just be pro-black. Be a pro-black Christian. Be a pro-black Muslim. Be a pro-black asshole. Be a pro-black sexist. An Afrocentric Afro-sexist. Be a black nationalist homophobe. We think we can just hold on to all this stuff that makes us feel so comfortable and cozy, that keeps us tied into the backwardness, and just pile stuff on top of it. No, we got to purge. We need transformation. This is the Bro Diallo Show, Q4 Radio. I probably should have said all this before I started attacking y'all beloved traditions, but I need financial support. I need moral support. Please visit Bro Diallo, the Diallo Kenyatta website, the blog links. Go subscribe to my YouTube. Make a contribution if you can. Become a Patreon if you're in a position to. You are greatly appreciated. Like I said, I wish I had said this at the inception of the show before I started attacking y'all traditions. But hey, the truth is the truth. And that's one of the primary commodities, most valuable commodities we can get access today. Unfettered, uncorporate sponsored, unobligated, fearless truth. This is the Bro Diallo Show. I am on the air at Q4 Radio, AM 1680, Q4.org, iTunes apps, iTunes Radio. Simply search QUE and the number 4. We out here. I am here every Monday, except for when I'm not, Wednesday, except for when I'm not, and Friday. But that's the basic show schedule. I will be in Ann Arbor, Michigan, I think next week. So I'll be in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So I'm looking forward, brothers and sisters there, the Black Psychologist Conference. We're going to go and see if we can get more black psychologists to engage in what I call maybe Wilsonian Amos Wilson, Dr. Marimba I need, Dr. Bobby Wright. We got too many brilliant, I can't go without saying Dr. Wade B. Nobles, Dr. Naeem Akbar. We got way too many brilliant African psychologists where the field of black psychology should be one of the key revolutionary core for revolutionary thought and liberationist resistance and Pan-African healing. So we'll be at the Black Psychologist Conference in Ann Arbor, advocating for Pan-Africanism and revolution alongside the scholarship embedded within the scholarship. So I think that's next Friday. Anyway, and also, we're reviving the African World Order. Not the African World Order. Yes, we are the African World Order site, but the African World Coalition is now organizing. We have 3 major initiatives, but I'm out of time. So I will see y'all Friday morning. Bro Diallo Show. Continue the struggle, and the struggle will continue. Peace. Why is it so loud?